What is an HSA? You've probably heard about it, and you would like to know, can it really help me? How can I use it? What does it really stand for? This presentation is brought to you by Alan Benoit Insurance Services. Alan is a licensed life and health insurance agent in the state of California. I'm also an insurance professional. My focus is on group, individual, and family health plans, Medicare supplement plans, and life and long-term care insurances. One of the most frequently asked questions that I get asked as a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider is about the HSA. And for good reason. Dave loves to talk about the virtues of HSAs, and frankly, so do I. Is an HSA right for you? Well, I want to help you answer that question and make the decision for yourself. There are one of three answers to that question: yes, no, and maybe at a later date. It's important to note that an HSA health plan is not the same thing as a health savings account. There are two entirely different things, but they can work together very nicely. The first component in the health plan is the HSA compatible health plan. The second component is the HSA savings account. The HSA health plan is a health plan that you buy from an insurance company, and there's a premium associated with the HSA health plan, just like any other type of health plan. The HSA savings account is just that. It is a savings account that you set up at a financial institution, like a local bank. The money you and or your employer, if this is an employer-sponsored HSA plan, deposit into this HSA bank account is to pay for certain health-related expenses. When you go to open a health savings account at your bank, you need to tell them that you want to open an HSA savings account. There's a difference between an HSA savings account and a run-of-the-mill savings account. Here's where some people get a little confused. You must have an HSA compatible health plan to deposit money into the HSA savings account. And just because you have an HSA compatible health plan does not mean you have to have an HSA savings account. The savings account portion is optional. A health savings account, or HSA, is a savings account as much like any other savings account, but it has a specific purpose. It is to be used for certain allowable health-related expenses, such as medical, dental, or vision expenses. One of the advantages of an HSA savings account is that the amount you deposit into the HSA is generally income tax deductible, at least for the federal income tax purposes. You'll want to ask your tax professional if an HSA is right for you. Each year, the IRS publishes guidance as to the requirements in order for a health plan to be considered HSA eligible. There are limitations as to how much you can contribute to an HSA savings account each year as well. IRS guidelines must be adhered to. Rule number 1, in order to contribute money into an HSA savings account, you must have an HSA compatible health plan. Not every health plan is HSA compatible. Rule number 2, comply with IRS guidelines. And rule number 3, refer back to rule number 1. So how do you know if a health plan is HSA compatible? If a health plan does not specifically say HSA in the name of the plan, it is probably not an HSA compatible health plan. Generally speaking, HSA compatible health plans are high deductible plans, but just because a health plan has a high deductible does not necessarily mean it's an HSA compatible. That may sound confusing, but just remember, an HSA compatible health plan will have the letters HSA in the name of the plan. Contributing to an HSA savings account without having an HSA compatible health plan is not allowed, nor is it income tax deductible. If you have money in your HSA savings account and change to a non-HSA compatible health plan in the future, you can still spend the money from your HSA savings account for allowable expenses. But you cannot deposit money into the HSA savings account if your health plan is not HSA compatible. The IRS publishes rules on HSA allowable expenses. Those under the age of 65, unless totally and permanently disabled, who use HSA funds for non-qualified medical expenses face a penalty of 20% of the funds used for such expenses. Funds spent for non-qualified purposes are also subject to income tax. A list of qualified and non-qualified expenses are found in the IRS publication 502. There'll be a website link at the end of this video for you to find that easily. There are limits as to how much you can contribute each year, which we'll talk about later. Here are a few allowable expenses. You can see it's pretty normal stuff. And this is a small sampling of allowable expenses. There is a comprehensive list on the IRS website. There are also some non-allowable expenses as well. Even if that big screen TV is easier on your eyes, it's still a no-go with the IRS. Generally, your health insurance plan cannot be paid for from an HSA savings account, but there are certain circumstances where premium payments are allowed. Once again, check with your tax professional if you have questions. HSA plans can be PPO or HMO plans. It depends on your insurance carrier as to which options they offer. Here's some information that should help you figure out if an HSA is right for you. After all is said and done, HSA plans do have some advantages, but they may not be for everyone. If you are healthy, HSA plans will cover preventative services just like any other health plan. But HSA plans do not cover anything else under the deductible. Office visits and/or prescriptions. The idea behind a health savings account is that you pay your office visits and prescriptions from your HSA savings account or out of your pocket. The health plan covers the money until you reach your deductible, which can be relatively high. If you're eligible for a subsidy through the exchange, like Covered California, you may be better off with a non-HSA plan due to the fact that many silver plans offer better benefits, especially under the deductible than an HSA option. There's another thing. An HSA plan isn't always the least expensive plan. Some high deductible non-HSA, like bronze plans, cover a few office visits per year, as well as some prescription drug coverage before you reach the deductible. The HSA does not. One other consideration: if you contribute the maximum to your tax-advantaged retirement accounts, an HSA may be another place for tax-advantaged savings. Check with your tax advisor to see if this is allowable and if it makes sense. In closing, do the math. See if an HSA plan is worth the tax advantages and a higher deductible. What's covered under Preventative? Well, check out the resources. Office visits, prescriptions, everything else will be out of pocket. These expenses will be the exception of Preventative. These expenses can be paid for from the HSA savings account or directly by you, but the HSA health plan will not cover these expenses until your deductible has been met. On a side note, most people think of Preventative as their annual physical, but the list is actually much more comprehensive than you might expect. You can contribute up to the maximum allowable amount each year. There are some resources at the end of this video. The money that is contributed to your HSA account is your money, even if your employer contributed money to your account. It is not a use it or lose it type of account. It's your money. Different financial institutions charge different fees to maintain your account, so shop around. You can't contribute beyond the annual limitations set by the IRS. One additional note: you cannot contribute money to an HSA account if you're over 65 years of age, and you can still spend from this account though. Just a reminder, the information contained in this presentation is not intended to provide tax guidance, financial or legal advice. Every person's tax situation is different, so you should always check with your tax or legal professionals before making final decisions. You should always utilize providers that are contracted by your health plan versus non-contracted providers. You'll always pay less, and in most cases much less, if you use contracted providers. which are also referred to as in-network providers. Thanks for being with us today. I hope this answered your questions. Here are some helpful resources which you can also find on our website at benoyinsurance.com. Visit us at benoyinsurance.com, where you can get free quotes and apply online for health insurance 24/7.